for PFL Week 1 regular season continues on. And just talking off air, I'm going to have to move some mountains to make it happen. But if I'm going to go to San Antonio, it's because this man's on the card. You've seen him on the show multiple times before. We were there in South Dakota. That night was not his night. However, he's got a little extra motivation. He just told me. I'm super happy for him. The one and only tall Steve Lowry. Sir, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Mike. Good to be back.
Yeah, man. I mean, and I've been asking everyone this, right? Because you were part of a transition period. I know you did a couple grappling matches after your fight in South Dakota, but how was that waiting period of, all right, I know the rumor. I don't know if it's true, and I don't know what it means for me, but I have to continue to focus on whatever it is I want to do, whether it be grappling, training, preparing for 2024. What was that wait and see period like for you?
Yeah. Probably you could probably guess just how nerve-wracking it was to, sit around and wonder like what, when am I not just fighting again? Like, what am I gonna do for a paycheck in the meantime? What am I gonna do like with myself? And the answer was to kind of get back to grappling and just finding any excuse to compete that I could really. So I had a lot of fun doing that. It can be distracted from the fact that nobody had any idea what was going on. So no, it was a very fruitful time. Like after the loss, I was a little bit bummed out and a little bit had to do a little bit of, kind of reevaluating. Like it definitely big hit to me and my identity as a person. So, that big lull in competition really made it nice to kind of like, get reacquainted with who I was and what my values were, what it meant to be a fighter, what it meant to be tall Steve, not tall Steve the fighter, not tall Steve fights people, just tall Steve. So it wasn't all bad. It ended up being, a pretty nice little break in the action there.
Well, and that's honestly really nice to hear because, if people are just watching this and they haven't followed your career, that's your first pro MMA loss. And
My first MMA loss.
yeah, MMA loss, but you took it as like, so serious where some people are like, all right, well, it's just one loss. Like, I'll just go back to whatever. They don't take it seriously. And obviously, not many people in any combat sport go through their entire career with any blemishes on their record. It's going to happen. But how quickly were you able to, as a man, not as a fighter, but as a man, go, hey, like, this is just the reality of what happened and time to move forward?
Well, I went through a period where it was like kind of, I think, probably the opposite of how most people experienced it. I went through a period where at first I was kind of relieved, if anything. Like I was not relieved like, oh, thank God, but relieved like, okay, like that wasn't so bad. Like, it sucks and it hurts and like, getting half your paycheck blows. But no, it was my initial like gut feelings of it were like, okay, this sucks, but like, I got home and like my wife was still happy to see me. My kids are still happy to see me. My friends at the gym are still my friends at the gym. My coaches still like and respect me. It was a whole thing. And it was just very, very like liberating to feel that sense of like, oh wow, like I still have a place like in my life without the, whatever, all the bells and whistles that come with being the undefeated tall Steve. But it wasn't until a little bit later that like the um the career reality set in for me. And what I mean is just that a little bit later it really hit me that like, wow, like this sucks. Like losing sucks. And it was a thing where I think I'd been running from like the negative feelings, like how would I feel if I lost? And I ran from it for a long time. And whenever I was finally like confronted with it, I was like, it wasn't so much the hurt feelings that sucked. It was like, damn, like I was really in a good position to capitalize and maybe be fighting for a world title. And like, the reality of like, okay, well, it's going to take a little bit more time now. That was like the most like, damn, like I have to get my act together here moment.
Absolutely. Well, no better way to really come back and rebound from that, right? Obviously, like you said, you stayed busy with grappling. And then how, if you can peel back the curtain a little bit and take me behind. So you get the call. Is it, hey, do you want to stay in Bellator or do you want to do the PFL season? Like, how was this approach to you?
That was honestly, without you knowing, that was pretty close to how it happened. Without fleshing out all the nitty
Yeah,
gritty,
yeah, yeah.
I was at a place in my contract where um I had, I don't, one or two flights left. I think one maybe, but it would the my contract, the term of my contract, the amount of time, and the number of bouts on my contract were very low, and I was in position to renegotiate. Um, but it was a thing where, like I told you off stream, you know, my wife's pregnant. We're due April 8th, and I had to kind of sit down and think in my head, like, well, what is the how can I optimize the most of my career in the shortest amount of time? And I crunched the numbers, I thought about it, and I was, you know, just arrived on the conclusion that the PFL tournament, on top of, you know, obviously being this a very prestigious, it very quickly became this very prestigious, you know, set of bouts that people put together and win. And like it's very magical to see people turn their lives around. It also became a thing for me where it made the most sense, not just for me like as a fighter, but me as a business person, if you want to call it that, and as a father too. So um like my agent and I chopped it up, we broke it down, and we are like, this is the plan moving forward.
And I'm excited for you. All right. So I get to ask the hard hitting questions since we've done several interviews. Did you have a talk with your wife and go, listen, I fight on the 4th, the baby's due on the 8th. There
Oh,
is no between.
it was dude. She told me like, listen, and so the baby was initially due the whatever the OB was telling us that the baby was going to be due on the 3rd, and then we got to move to the 5th, and we were the Mike Kogan and the team over at PFL were very they were very helpful in trying to, hey, like we'll do whatever we can to make sure you're there, but we need you to make sure you're there before. And for me, it was a thing where I was like, well, you know, I'd really like to be there. And obviously, like, I don't want to miss the birth of my child. And my wife was the one who was like, listen, dude, we got a baby coming. You got to figure it out. Like, I need you. I don't care if you have to FaceTime me, like, you know, in between rounds while I'm giving birth. Like, you're gonna have to go out there and do this. And that gave me all the piss and vinegar I needed.
I absolutely love that. I'm so excited for you not only to get back inside the cage, but obviously welcoming a baby into your family again. It's just beautiful. And just talking to you now, it just seems like everything's kind of in place. And you talked about being a business person and all that. You're taking on Oleg Popov. You both have one blemish on your record. This is such a great fight to really open up the heavyweight season, right? Because here's what we know. We know Renan Ferrer is the champ. We know Francis Ngannou is somehow involved with the PFL. We don't know if he's
Yeah.
going to fight. And Vadim Nemkov's kind of circling around. And, you know, you had previously, I had asked questions about Nemkov and if he ever moved up to heavyweight. There's so many more opportunities rather than just, all right, I'm going to do this season and then possibly win $1 million, possibly win the belt. Like there's more waiting for you. But in the grand scheme of things right now, what means most to you? Getting that belt or that big paycheck?
Um, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, $1 million is always going to be $1 million. I mean, for $1 million, I'd go fight somebody in my cul-de-sac right now, you know. But no, I mean, I when I set out to do this thing, I wanted to be the best fighter ever, and obviously the path to the title is, you know, like um not just it's not just clear, but it's like there's a step by step, easy to follow process to get there, and that's obviously when it's all said and done, I want to be world champion. So that's for me as a person and me as a fighter, that's a little bit more what I'm focused on. But don't get me wrong, $1 million is $1 million, baby.
Right. Oh, trust me, I know. Trust me, I know how much that financial freedom could help. But obviously, you know, thinking about you as a family man, as a person, having the world champion, title attached to your name will mean so much, to your kids, your family, your wife, yourself, years
Yeah.
down the road. When you sit down with your coaches and you talk about the season, how is that conversation? Because it's not like Bellator, right? It's not like, all right, we're gonna have this fight. Let's just focus on this fight, and then we'll reconvene in another time, guys. It's no, I have this window. We're gonna start here in April. I'm not sure when it's going to end, likely at the end of the year, but I've got to be prepared to fight 3, 4 times this year. How did you guys approach that?
It's like a very, very broken down. Like we haven't even really, neither of the coaches have really. So I say neither. I should say, none of the. We have 6, 7 guys on staff at Killcliff. None of them have sat down with me and been like, okay, well, here's what we're gonna do for this and this and this, and it's more dialed back. Obviously we're just focused on getting to the fourth, doing the best we can. And then even that, the fourth is still kind of, even though it's only whatever, 2 weeks away now.
Yeah.
Um, the fourth is still a nebulous enough idea that like, okay, well, we can't really control what's going to happen then, but what we can do is right now we can focus on the skills that we need to capitalize the most in a fight situation. So that's more or less what it's been like.
I didn't want to ask this, but I already asked him, so I have to ask you. Your good friend, he referred to you as one of his best friends, Levin Vassell, also in the
Yeah.
tournament. So I'm going to start with this.
He is one of my
How
best friends.
how
That's no other way to put it.
how motivating and just good does it feel to have, your best friend? I'll ask you the other part of it later, but the fact that you guys are in the gym, same event, same organization, you're both going to be there on the same night. So you're training together, going through it all together, the ups, the downs. What is that like?
Bro, it's the Linton. Whenever the lights shut off and it's my turn to settle down, you won't be able to sing the song of Steve Mowry without Linton Vassell having at least a few verses in there. No, me and Linton have been slanging and banging with each other for almost 10 years now. It's like I couldn't imagine, and not just in context of this fight, but I couldn't imagine, the trajectory of me and my development, not just as a fighter, but as a person without Linton Vassell being part of the story. So that said, um, it's been it's been exciting, and it's just very like very energizing and very like very I don't want to say comforting, but very like um to know that me and Linton are in there like absolutely pushing each other as hard as we possibly can day in, day out to be the best fighters we can be is maybe the most structurally comforting thing you can have going into a fight. And especially like when Linton and I, a few times we've had fights close to each other, and then we fought on the same card one other time at a Bellator in Miami. uh like those are some of the best performances we've ever had, so it's very exciting looking forward to this fight.
Super empowering. I could understand where you're coming from with that. All right, I asked him, and obviously you know his answer. And I've asked you this before, and you've like yelled at me for asking. But have you thought about like how the tournament plays out? If you two, he said, I don't want to have to fight my friend, but you know, have you
um
had those same thoughts?
I mean, again, like, bro, I haven't even it's I don't know what's gonna happen, whatever, 20 minutes from now.
Right,
Why,
right,
why am I
right,
worried
right.
about something that's it might happen at the end of the year? Like honestly, dude, like when I yell at people, I don't yell at people because I'm mad at them for asking. It's a perfectly legitimate question to ask. I don't even say get upset, but like the frustrating thing about it is that it's like I don't know, bro. Like Lynn and I throw down 4 times, 3 times, 4 times a week. Like, bro, it's honestly like I'm not worried about fighting him at the end of the year. I'm worried about how am I gonna do with him in wrestling tomorrow.
That makes perfect sense. And I love hearing from both of you guys because he's been away for a while. Obviously, we talked about, how this time for you was, and you guys just both sound so motivated. And when you talk about guys who were, at the top of their game in Bellator. How good does it feel to get all the politics out with just the PFL season, right? So not mentioning names or social media or anything like that, just going, all right, I go in, I fight, I do my job, and I do what I expect to do, and I just go on. And there's no, I gotta wait, I gotta do this, it's just one after the other. How relieving is that?
What's the Jocko, the military guy that what
Yeah.
it Willing has that has that thing, the discipline is freedom. And I think
Yes.
the reason why I say that the structure, like the overly structured nature of a tournament is very liberating because you know exactly when you will and will not be competing, which is something that admittedly Bellator struggled with, Um, I do feel like a lot of the time there was some not just because they didn't run as many shows as some other promotions, but because there was just flat out just some disorganization. With the nature of PFL, not just in the tournament structure, but from from the looks of it, there's obviously going to be some Bellator events going on, and then they're trying to build themselves as a brand outside of the tournament now. It seems like it seems like there's going to be it seems like there's going to be, opportunity for not just this tournament, but for growth on the outside. So it is very liberating to know that, like, okay, even if the tournament doesn't work out or, things come up, that there will be some room, some other avenues to go outside of, yeah, just fighting and then holding your breath. Maybe you fight in, maybe you fight in 3 months, maybe you fight in 8 months, whatever. It does feel very the structure of it is very nice.
I'm not getting paid to do this, so I will say though, however, not only will people be able to watch you on ESPN Plus as part of the PFL regular season, but with the Bellator announcing their collaboration with Max, formerly HBO Max, the all former Bellator fights will be on there and events will be on there. So if you want to get familiar with Steve Mowry before PFL Week 1, you'll be able to go to Max to do
Up on a
so. So
Max.
just trying to plug my guy, man. Just trying to
Up
plug
on
my
the
guy.
former HBO.
But with that said, there is going to be more eyes and more opportunities. And you talked about the organization. So for those that will be watching on April 4th, what should we expect from you against Oleg Popov and
You can
the PFL one
you can
season?
expect a Steve Mowry that's fully focused and gonna go in there ready to do some violence.
Just sign me up for that. I got to ask you because you're a sports guy. I've been asking everyone that part of the PFL interviews about this. Obviously, we're in March Madness time, and I always said my favorite part is when like you'll watch the opening round games, and the other two teams are on like the tunnel or in the baseline waiting
Uh,
for the one game to finish, and then they just run out onto the court. Obviously, fighters are not going to be doing that, right? You're not going to be on the ramp watching the other heavyweight fights, but how in tune will you be with the other fights, not only on that night, but throughout this tournament?
oh, I mean that's tournaments. That's the magic of tournaments is that like you never know what's gonna happen and that anybody at any time you might have to square up and throw down. I mean even outside of Linton, there's guys in the tournament that I fought and trained with. And even amongst those guys, it's like, okay, well, am I gonna have to fight them again? Am I, whatever? Like, am I gonna have to fight guys that I trained with? Like, it's all very the uncertainty of it is very exciting, very like gets a gets my blood pumping. It's very cool.
Bonus question not related to the fight game. How do you feel about your Pittsburgh Steelers having two former Chicago Bear quarterbacks?
Yeah, and for like we got Russell Wilson, Justin Fields for less than $5 million. What if you would have you could not have the Vegas odds of that happening, man.
I mean, from Trubisky, and we know how that worked out. Now Justin Fields. I mean, I'm gonna stay partial and say Fields should have never left, but
Well, Mitch Trubisky and he trains at the same facility that Killcliff's in, so I get to see him sometimes. And it's interesting that like it's interesting to stop and like I really feel like I have not to be that guy, but like I really feel like I have an in that most Pittsburgh sports fans don't have, and that like I get to actually see the guy and talk to him, and like it's very like whenever I found out pretty quickly upon becoming an athlete just how much disconnect there is between the people who watch it and the people who do it. But on top of that, the Pittsburgh sports culture is so like hostile and vitriolic and like mercurial, and that like if you're doing well, you're the best, Stairway to Seven, we're the best team in the world. And then if you're losing, it's this guy's washed up, Mike Tomlin needs to go, blah blah blah. And it was very cool. So like like I said, with that in mind, is my approach to like sports and seeing it all, being part of it has changed. And then to meet Mitch, who was like, it's just very cool to hear how the other half lives, as it were. Like, oh, okay, what was it like in the locker room? And I didn't play football growing up, but to sit down and chop it up with him, was really nice and really like very like endearing in a way that was like, wow, like I get to be a part of something, not just as a professional athlete, but like I got to meet this guy on a human level and just chop it up with him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. If you think Pittsburgh sports are bad, try being a Chicago sports fan,
Yeah,
because
Chicago's rough
everyone
too.
on Twitter, Instagram has told all of us exactly what the Bears are doing and why they're going here and who they're going to draft and what they're trading for. I've known about everything for the last 3 months, according to Twitter.
No.
So it's disgusting. But all jokes aside, Steve Mowry, I'm hoping to be there in San Antonio. I honestly, if it's not just for you being on the card, but you and Litton being on the card and this new opportunity under the PFL banner, like there's so many reasons, not only for someone like myself to want to go, but for everyone to tune in because, and this will be my last question for you. When you saw the crossover event and you saw Bellator guys go 5-1 on the main card, unfortunately, your division, Ryan Bader then, and I know he's a 205er, but you can exact some
Call it what it is,
revenge
baby.
here. But how did you take a little sense of pride going, look at what our promotion has done against this now, what planned to be the second best promotion?
I'll be honest with you, I identified more with the fact that two of my teammates fought, and I was really impressed with how they both can. That was more like, yeah, my dudes like showed out. Obviously, Jason Jackson absolutely killed it, and then Impa Kasanganai, who I think doesn't get enough credit as it is, fought Johnny Eblin, Johnny Eblin, I think, in my humble opinion, Johnny Eblin might be the best, is easily top 10 all weight class fighters, not in the UFC. And like he might be top 3 middleweights doing it right now, is what I'm trying to say. And for Impa to go out there and perform in the way he did was like was
It was
uh
awesome.
was sick. No, that was more like I think what I was in tune with than and then yeah, so when it was over and it was all the Bellator guys up there, I was like, oh cool. Like, what do you know? You know?
That's funny. You just mentioned those two, so I gotta get one more in here. What is it about Killcliff? You just mentioned your two teammates, right? I know when you and I talked, off camera, you're like, I got work. Jason Jackson coming into a title fight against Amasa, he was
Yeah.
working. There's a certain cloth about Killcliff fighters that you can't take anything away from them as fighters, but there's another side of them that they're like, this is our life. We don't take anything for granted in this fight world, but we also work our ass off outside of the fight game. What makes
Yeah.
you guys that
Well, Jason Jackson is a psychopath. That's all I have for you. Jason Jackson is a different amongst humans who are a different breed. Jason Jackson is even still a different breed. And I think if Jason had $10 million, he would still be like, you know, landscaping in freaking Miramar. So that dude's always trying to make a buck. He's always trying to get one up. He's always trying to improve his situation, which is, has been pretty revelatory of his fight career. And overall, though, I would just say that um, Henry, Greg, and the rest of the guys at Killcliff really found a way to keep the pot stirring. Like I don't know, we're very blessed. We have a very good situation at Killcliff right now, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for not just me and my immediate people, but me and the entire team.
Well, I'm a huge fan and supporter of Kill Cliff and obviously yourself. And I can't wait to see you back in there April 4th on ESPN Plus, PFL Week 1 regular season, live from San Antonio. Steve Mowry, thank you. Not that you need to keep up, be updated, but if I am able to make it to San Antonio, I will definitely let you know, and we'll chop it up on Fight Week. So looking forward to it one way or another, whether I'm covering it from home or from San Antonio. I've never been, so I got to start, that's the goal for 2024 is to start traveling more. So, Steve Mowry fighting gives me a little more incentive. So,
Oh
thank
yeah,
you so much for the time. All the best. Congrats to you and the wife on your growing family. And I hope to talk after your fight, man.
absolutely.